everyone, it's Lauren and I'm back! Did you miss me? Did you? I've forgotten how to do this. I've just been talking to the camera, which wasn't recording, for like 5 minutes. It feels like I've been away for ages. If you want to know what I've been doing and why I've been uploading videos, I'll leave a link to my update video below. It explains what's happening in my life. But I'm in my new flat, I've got a new background, might be playing around with it a little bit because obviously most of my flat's a mess, so I don't really know where I could film. So let's see, it's an experiment. I'm here today to do my February reading wrap up. Yes, February. I can't remember even what I read in February, so I'm really sorry. I might just be going, this is a book, this is a book. I'm slowly going to be catching up with everything, so obviously we've got February wrap up today, next week my March wrap up will be going up, and by that point it'll be time to wrap up April, but at least I'll be back in the swing of it. I wanted to talk about all these books with you anyway, so you know, we'll just have to have a belated wrap up chat. So the first book that I read in February was All the Light We Cannot See by Doerr. This tells the story of two young people in the build-up and all the way through the Second World War. You have Marie-Laure, who is a blind girl living in France, and there's a young man called Werner, who is an orphan living in Germany. You're basically following them throughout their lives and how they grow up and how the war occurring changes them and changes their lives and how their two stories are intertwined. I really enjoyed this book, and I think one of the reasons for that is that the pace of the plot is really quite slow. The writing is very luxurious and you really get the chance to get to know these characters and to understand their lives. But it doesn't feel laboured, it doesn't feel slow, and the reason is you will jump from person to person quite quickly. Each chapter is actually really very short. We start the novel at the climax, kind of at the end, and you kind of go back to their each respective person's past, and you switch between Marie-Laure and Werner quite regularly. And so that although each of their stories is quite detailed and we get a lot of each of their lives, because you're chopping between each of them, it doesn't get boring, it doesn't feel slow. But Doerr is able to get a lot of detail in there, so I thought that was a really good device. It reads quite slowly, but in a nice and quite an indulgent way. Like I quite liked the pace of it, but it never got boring, so I thought that was really very good. And I would describe the tone of this book as sadly beautiful. The message I got from it is that really, no matter who you are, war is terrible. War is terrible if you're in the army, war is terrible if you're a civilian, war is terrible if you're being attacked, if you're being invaded, even if you are the invader. There's nothing about war which is redeeming. But I don't think it lost hope in humanity completely, and I think it did make you appreciate the beauty of life. So I mean, it was sad, like it made you sad for the world. So this is getting quite intense and getting quite deep. But I really enjoyed it, and I think with it being an adult novel as well, if you're someone who reads a lot of young adult fiction, the way it was written was so accessible. Because like I say, you're chopping between the characters quite a lot, so it's a good, I would call it quite a good bridge between reading very fast-paced young adult books into the more slower paced adult books with perhaps more complex language. I thought it would bridge those two really well. If you don't like slow books, I think this is the slow book for you, if that makes sense. The next book I finished in February was A Game of Thrones by George R. R. Martin. I was so pleased to finish this. I'm not going to explain it here because come on, you know what this is, you know what's going on here. I really love the TV show, and I had high hopes of finishing the whole series before the new series comes out, and yeah, I've read one of them, so I've done really well. I still want to read the series because I enjoyed knowing more about the characters, and I just enjoyed kind of going back to the beginning actually, sort of reading it again, knowing what was going to happen to people. I quite enjoyed that experience, but I don't know how easy I would have found it if I hadn't watched the show already. So if I didn't know how the world worked, I'm not sure I would have understood. There's a lot, especially the first couple of chapters, there is a lot of information. And I don't know, like the first couple of chapters especially, I think if I hadn't have known where it was going, I would have probably just put it down, because it's hard, but it's hard to separate the two different media. But you know, I enjoyed reading it. I can't really give it a proper review for if I just read it and not watched the show, but I'm really pleased. I'm going to keep reading the series, I think, as well. So then after that I wanted a bit of a shorter read after reading like 800 pages. It took me months to finish that as well, so I was like, I need to get through my books a little bit more. And so I picked up Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. The premise of this book is that there's been a worldwide epidemic, wiped out most of the world, a little bit like SARS, and we jump between the days just before the epidemic breaks to 15 years later, which I guess is the sort of present day. following this group of travelling actors and musicians as they go from settlement to settlement performing Shakespeare. I really enjoyed this book, and it's hard for me to talk about it really without explaining why, because I liked how all the stories linked up. I thought it was really very clever and I really enjoyed reading it. Her writing was very good. One of the things I really liked is that I felt that the post-apocalyptic world that she creates was really realistic. Like, I could really imagine that this is how people would live after most, 99% of the population being wiped out. And because of that, I found it quite scary. Like, not scary as in it's not a threatening book, but it really made me appreciate how much we all rely on each other as a civilization. And I think in the end, it's actually got quite a lot of hope for humanity, and I thought it was quite a beautiful ending. And I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it as a very, very good, very fast-paced read. To keep the kind of short, fast-paced reads theme going, I then picked up Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own. I didn't really know what to expect from this. I knew it was about women in fiction. I absolutely loved this book. I thought it was so good. Virginia Woolf gave a speech on women in fiction in 1928, and this book is an expansion on a result of that speech. Her speech was about why Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte could not have written War and Peace, and the argument that she comes up with is that in order for a woman to write fiction, she had to have the means to support herself and a room of her own in which to write. And she argues that mostly across history women have not been able to have these two things, which is why historically there are fewer female writers, or at least fewer female writers that were taken seriously. What I really loved about this book is that I know it was written sort of in the early 30s, which isn't that long ago, but at the same time is quite long ago, and so much of what she said really spoke to me even now, and I thought it was so eloquently put, so witty. Almost every page I was reading going, oh, this is amazing. I was almost laughing at how well she was explaining the situation. And I thought it was a lot more accessible than I thought it was going to be for a modern reader. I just need to read you one of the passages because it is so true, and if the argument is why didn't Jane Austen write an amazing book like War and Peace, this just really sums it up for me. What she's saying is that we put greater importance on traditionally male topics as opposed to traditionally female topics. Speaking crudely, football and sport are important. The worship of fashion, the buying of clothes, trivial. And these values are inevitably transferred from life to fiction. This is an important book, the critic assumes, because it deals with war. This is an insignificant book because it deals with the feelings of women in a drawing room. I just loved it, and I was pleasantly surprised because I wasn't expecting to love it this much, and I gave it 5 stars, which I don't normally do for a book. Yeah, and I really recommend giving this one a go. And then I was just completely on a roll. I was like, right, I loved it, I'm into my feminist literature now, what can I pick up next? And I chose Chimamanda and Ngozie Adichie's We Should All Be Feminists. This is so similar to A Room of One's Own because this is based on Adichie's TED talk that she gave about feminism, and then it has been expanded into an essay. It's very, very short, it's 50 pages and the pages are this small, so really, really quick read, but again, I absolutely loved it. The main crux of her argument is that it's not just about the way that women are brought up to behave in a typically feminine manner that is the problem, it's also the way that boys are brought up in order to behave typically masculine, and then these just perpetuate circumstances throughout our lives. I can't really explain it better than she does because it's so short, so if I explained it, it would just be a poor representation of her arguments, but I would just say go and watch her TED talk, go and buy this book. She argues so well and without anger and without judgment, and it's very, again, to use the same word, it's very accessible and it's very eloquent. And I have this book displayed on my bookcase like that, so that if anyone comes into my house, they know that they should be feminists. So that was it, that was all the books I read in February. Got through it quite quickly actually. Well, I don't know, I haven't edited it yet, so let's see how quickly it's going to be. I would say let me know what you read in February, but you probably can't remember that long ago either, so let me know if you've read any of these books, let's discuss them, and oh, it's good to be back, guys. I will see you in my next video. Bye!